Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Elyachar, the chief content producer and writer of jakestake.com, a pop culture entertainment news website. Guys, it's episode 40, and what a way to start up episode 40 with one of my all-time favorite singers, songwriters, performers. He is known to the AGT Got Talent superfans. He is known as Prince Poppycock, but however, he's a talented musician and a great performer. Please help me welcome John Quale.
Hey guys, woo! How you doing, John? Jacob?
I'm doing great. It's such an honor and privilege to talk to you.
Oh, stop. Thank you. Who, me?
Seriously, I'm going to say this. You are a goat when it comes to America's Got Talent world. You
one of
are
them.
On, yeah. The top, in fact, my top 25 in
yes, we're a stable of goats.
Absolutely. And it has been, I cannot believe it's been 10 years since your first audition.
Yeah, it would have been 10 years in like March was my audition.
So how did that experience help you grow as a performer?
It sets up a lot of challenges for you. And, forces you to grow in order to overcome those challenges. And I think everybody by now knows that, there is no such thing really as making it. And even, huge movie stars like Julia Roberts and people like that think that, it could all just be over tomorrow. So you just have to constantly prove yourself. And AGT is kind of set up like in that way. It's like, a lot of these shows are where you just have to keep upping it. And then, and then they send you out on tour. At least they did my season. They've been doing weird things. Every once in a while, there's a talk of a, champions tour, but that has never manifested yet, at least to my knowledge, and then you go off into the world to have your shot at a career. So, it just forces you to grow at every step, I think.
Alrighty. So throughout your America's Got Talent history, there are 4 key performances that I want to talk to you about. 3 of them were from the series, and the last one was from Champions. So let's start out with your audition remains one of my all-time favorite auditions in show history. So seriously, I'm as a super
I just
fan,
think I look like a baby.
But here's the thing. When I saw you walk on that stage as Poppycock, I was like, holy cow, this could go either 2 ways. But then when you performed Figaro aria and you hit all those notes and saw Sharon Osbourne go crazy at her desk. So what was your thoughts when you performed that aria and what was your reaction?
So AGT had pursued me for about 2 years before I agreed to audition. And one of the reasons why they got me to audition is because I had already missed the LA round because I wasn't going to go to a cattle call. And the New York one was coming up. So they agreed to pay my airfare, a hotel room, and a per diem. And, I was, 31 then, I guess. And I was just like, I want to go to New York. So I've known a lot of people who have been pursued. I've known a lot of people that have been on the show. There's a lot of ill will towards the show in certain performance communities because they do tend to ridicule people. That's kind of the first half of the season. Is there'll always be people to make fun of. And so there's a lot of mistrust amongst a lot of my performing community friends towards the show. So for a while, I was saying no to them because I didn't know if I was going to be that, pull a prank. Because they really do. They do dirty tricks on that show and they pull the rug out from underneath performers all the time. They've done it to me. So I didn't know. But I knew that, I had been doing a lot of emceeing at nightclubs and cabarets and burlesque shows. So like I was really good at dealing with audiences back then. I felt very confident with hecklers and stuff like that. So I felt like if Piers was going to come for me, I was just going to come right back for him or make fun of myself first, you know, which makes you invincible, essentially. So I felt confident, but I definitely didn't know like what their plan was for me, you know, because I firmly believe that there's just like, you know, up in the dark, like boardrooms with Simon and Nigel, you know, who roll in their Bentleys and they pretty much cast it and they plan it, you know, and they have these story arcs made for everybody that are lies. They're all lies. Mine is a lie. Mine was even this time, you know, they don't allow you to tell the truth. They tell their truth, which is, you know, it's part of the game and you kind of have to play along with it. But anyways, back to the audition. Yeah, what had happened actually was that right before me, there was like these three brothers, I guess, from Jersey, like Italian-American brothers that were doing kind of a three tenors type thing. And they had gone through. So I was like, oh, well, there's an opera act going through. I might not make it. And I was actually the very, very last audition of that day. The very last one.
Wow.
Yeah, which was really weird. And also, like, I felt like people were gawking at me, and including the audience, because we were kind of held in a bit of a, like, pen, you know, not even with chairs or anything. Nothing. My season, at least, I can say that, like, the accommodations for the contestants was more awful. And so the audience members could all see us, like while we were like waiting. It was weird. And yeah, but then, you know, it's just like, I love Sharon. I understand why she left the show, but I think that the show really lost something with her. And she was obviously my biggest supporter throughout that entire thing. I think I think she definitely pushed me through Vegas when I gave not the best performance. You know, I don't like that. She was like, I want him in Hollywood. So I think that happened for sure. But it was exciting, you know. My mother was actually there, and I met with a couple of my relatives, and we went out for dinner afterwards and celebrated. It was a lot of fun. So
awesome. And I've heard a lot of, believe me, about what America's Got Talent. I know there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and this is the first. And I think for the audience who haven't heard about what's going on, and this year was a big year. Because of the curtain behind back. Because my friends Calabro, Jake's Take's closest friends Calabro from Britain's Got Talent, and Marcelito Pomoy, both of them have made a lot of noise, and their fan base made a lot of noise about Champions because they actually accused Simon through sabotaging them.
Oh, Simon sabotaged me. Yeah, for sure.
Wow, this is the first time I'm hearing about this.
In Champions, yes. Well, in Champions, my only critique was that Simon didn't like the song, and I was told to sing that song. I was not allowed to sing the song that I had wanted to. So
I gotta say this, but I know we're jumping ahead, but I keep playing Edge of Glory, your cover, over and over and over again.
Don't forget Pippin. There's a little bit of Pippin at the top. So my favorite musical. Nice.
And by the way, that was still one of my favorite performances from that season of Champions, because and if you're telling me this, I'm like, you should have been. There were singers that should not have made it to the finals, and you should have been in that final.
Oh, I didn't watch after my show. I didn't watch any of it, of that season. I watched my performance and was decently happy with how it came out. Except I wish they would have edited when my cane came down to have been on the beat, but whatever.
And also, I kind of wish that Sharon Osbourne was a guest judge because she could have pressed that golden buzzer.
Buzzer, yeah. The little girl that they gave it to, I was just like, it was so funny. I don't know if you remember, but
Angelica Hale.
Yeah, who sang my fight song in her first one on Champions. She had to start that song over like 4 times.
Wow.
Yeah, well, it wasn't live. None of it was live. And the weird thing about that was that the audience wasn't judging. The people that were judging were this weird, like, they brought in representatives from each state and they put them into this like holding pen where they were watching the video footage of it, like on a television. So they weren't even like watching what was actually happening. And then they totally did a gotcha on me, and they pulled me up for an interview before, which they only do that in auditions in the regular show. They talk to you afterwards. They just present you, and they hadn't built an easy way for me to get up to the throne. So each time I had to go up to the throne, I had to be lifted by 2 of the dancers. And by that point, I had been doing lifts for weeks. And like this part of my arm was just like all bruised and sore. And it was just like, and then sitting down in that costume. So it's like, you go, like I didn't know what was happening. And it was so embarrassing because I felt like I was just like caught off guard, and because I was thinking that the interview was going to be afterwards, but instead it just went into more just critique, and they didn't let me talk very much. So,
which is a shame.
Well, and everybody was nice except for Simon. So
yeah, and more on him later. But however, we got to get back to you. I cannot do this interview without mentioning Bohemian Rhapsody. Because that was not only you set the standard for camp performers, but also it remains an important moment for the history books. So what is that story behind that performance?
Well, one, I think it goes back to having Sharon as an advocate. It also goes back to my team at the time, Steve Lanassa, Sharon McGonigal, and Sean Smith. So what had I just finished? I did the clown number. I did Pagliacci. And they had been really pushing for me to do a rock number. And so I said that I would do Bohemian Rhapsody. Like I said that to get them to let me do the Pagliacci number. Because essentially we had already planned the Pagliacci number and spent a lot of money on that we had crowdsourced. And because we were making all the costumes, we were spending doing AGT puts you into debt. Like I will say that to anybody thinking about wanting to do it, because you'll get a hotel room and a per diem, but it's not like the other shows. It's not like American Idol or The Voice or anything like that, where you're going to be getting SAG-AFTRA rate, which is money. Like that you can live on. So we were up at Yamashiro's, the Japanese restaurant at the top of the Hollywood Hills with my mom. My mom is coming up a lot. She was in town, obviously, so we were celebrating. It's a very kind of celebratory place to go. And we had already been in production of the costume, because I wanted something that made me look like a little porcelain figurine. So we were already going with that blue theme. Sharon McGonigal, fabulous tailor and costume designer. And then Steve Lanassa was the one that was kind of doing my props and set design. So he sketched out on a table, napkin or whatever, placemat. It was the back of a menu, I think, because they were paper menus. And he was like that. And he was just like, give me that. because the whole thing was based on toile motif. So toile is like, English pastoral scenes that are like made into wallpaper or fabrics or things like that, where it's like girls sitting with lambs in a field, and then he kind of pushed it more to this Dutch thing. So the plate that he made is more of a Dutch China pattern. And then the vases, we just went down to Chinatown and got a shit ton of fake vases for cheap. The girls' costumes are from a store, infamous store on La Brea here in Hollywood called, can't remember, but it sells like sexy clothes, but they're like really high quality. And then we actually had a choir that didn't really make it much into the cut, which I thought was interesting that they were there and weren't in the cut, but whatever. And then, I think we all know that there's nothing more rock and roll than breaking things, or setting something on fire, or, pyrotechnics, exploding things. So we definitely wanted to just make a giant mess and have me be a brat, and that was the whole kind of thing with the maids. That kind of little play came up of kind of telling the story. And then Artistry in Motion just makes those confetti cannons. America's Got Talent actually got that for me, because I really firmly believe that they wanted that to be a big number, so they put me last and they put a lot of money into it. We put a lot of money into it too, though. We put as much money into it as possible. But at the time, that team of Steve, Sean, and I were really able to push back. You really have to push back against the producers because they really want you to do it their way, the way that they've kind of been told to do it, essentially. And so we were able to ask for a lot, and we would do it kind of by department. So if we got to a wall in one department and say costuming, then we'd go to scenery and we'd see if we can push that further. And then, we'd go to, hair and makeup and, and just try to push, make it bigger and bigger. And Edmund, that's not his real name. His real name is Kevin Santos. He's the one responsible for all the glorious digital backdrops, which were just incredible. And he's a very mysterious character. I met him just through Facebook, and the community on Facebook during America's Got Talent was really fun. That was also kind of in the earlier days of Facebook, and I don't think Instagram even existed yet, and so things felt warm. But he's a professional from New York. I've met him a few times and hung out with him a few times, but mostly and he produces work so fast. And so he was just sending us these images, like all these images, and they allowed us to use them. And Sean was my boyfriend at the time, who's also a photographer. He was doing all my photography at the time. He worked with the producers specifically to get those in place. Coincidentally, me working with Kevin led to AGT being very restrictive of artists using their own background images, because apparently it bit them in the ass because some of the images were copyrighted. So so I've never been able to, like, on any of my subsequent performances, I've never been able to use my own graphic design. I wasn't able to for the Feeling Good, and I wasn't able to for Edge of Glory either.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting because I remember corresponding with Sue Fink, who's director of Angel City Chorale, one of my all-time favorite choirs. And she said
I love them. I have a friend in that.
And they're still one of my favorites, have set the standard for choirs. But I remember Sue saying she said they faced challenges going up with the producers as well.
Oh, of course, yes. It's nothing but, and it's levels of producers. So oftentimes the person that you're going to have direct dealings with is answering to they're answering to so many people. Like there are so many men behind the curtain on that show, and there are definitely directives. They're definitely trying to cast it. They definitely pretty much know who they want to win from the beginning. It's usually the person that has the backstory, the sad backstory that they've crafted for them. So it is what it is. And so oftentimes what you have to do is remember not to get mad at kind of the younger first people that come with the message. You need to just follow the trail and work your way up to someone that you can actually have a conversation about changing something with. Unfortunately, that didn't really happen on on Champions. We were just under, because they wouldn't confirm to me that I was going to be on it until I had a month, I think, to prepare for that. And
that quick of a turnaround.
Yeah, and I made I had my own costume made and tried to come up with as much of a concept, but it was just fighting them every step of the way. So the product that ended up is it's such a compromise from what my original vision was going to be, which was going to be mashup of Maybe Someday from Cabaret and Umbrella by Rihanna. But
that would have been insane.
Yeah, I wanted to do it, but they didn't let me. And then the one thing that I now regret, but it's hard because you can't doing Bohemian Rhapsody I did Bohemian Rhapsody too early in the show. I should have done either Bohemian Rhapsody or the American number last and bumped Nessun Dorma up. But Nessun Dorma was also, that number got put together in less than a week. And
because it was finale nights.
Yeah. And that was such a compromise as well, because I didn't want to sing that for my finale. I wanted to sing Nature Boy. And I wanted to do it in half Poppycock, half John. And I wanted to do it on a swing with pastoral backgrounds. But they didn't let me do it. You have to push back. Ultimately, there's only so much that you can do, and they're going to win. But if you don't try, they're just going to make you into something that's not you at all, and you have to be cautious of that.
All right. Before we leave AGT, there's one final thing I want to ask you about, because you had the privilege of singing with Donna Summer, which I think it's a huge privilege, because there's not a lot of acts right now that have at least said that they've sang or performed with a music icon.
Well, and I was her last televised singing appearance before she passed away. So I have lots to say about it. One, she's a well-known homophobe who has said that HIV and AIDS is God's wrath upon the gay community. Mm-hmm. We spent a good hour in a meeting with producers going over the fine points of which pronouns I would be singing during our duet. At one point, she brought me into her trailer, to Pray the Gay Away. She is not one of my musical idols, so all of that was false. I did not, I was not thrilled about singing with her. I do like her music, especially the stuff with Giorgio Moroder. And she's a very lovely woman. I have her phone number in my phone. We were supposed to get lunch. We never did. We talked about singing. She told me that she loves pineapple and pomegranate juice before she sings. We talked about our families. She genuinely was a lovely person, but it was also very strange, because it was all very obvious. So, it was a weird, surreal experience, to say the least. And I really hate that I wasn't wearing makeup on my neck. I wear makeup on my neck and my ears now. Back then, I was really into the idea of the Commedia dell'arte mask look, and I'm not into that look anymore. So I look back on that and I'm like, I wish your wig was different. Oh, and the wig was made by Russell, who died very shortly after. He was the head of hair, and he was the loveliest guy. Worked at CBS Television City for 20 years doing hair on the soaps and all that. So lovely guy. Passed away. Very sad. He made that wig. And then Sharon Osbourne gave me the scarf I'm throwing about. It's Chanel, and it came.
Wow.
It came to my makeup chair before I went on, which was very sweet of her.
Seriously, I'm sorry, but Sharon Osbourne still is one of the greatest judges on that show, and it's just it's just a shame that what happened.
Yeah, well, first of all, she's one of the only people that can stand up to Simon because he's such a smug cunt. But and she doesn't have any of it. She's been a concert promoter. Do you know what it takes to be a concert promoter? Being a concert promoter is tough as fuck, and you have to deal with some slimy assholes. So, and she ran Ozfest is one of the biggest festivals there is. So she can stand her own. I think for the most part, she she got fed up with NBC, is what I read. Also, I think she might have wanted to take a break from the public eye, and Ozzy might not be doing so hot. So I don't know, but don't take that from me.
Alrighty, but let's move on from the entire AGT universe and talk about your career. Alrighty, so what have been
my career?
Alrighty, so what are some of the challenges that you faced throughout, and have you overcome those obstacles?
Well, I haven't. Many of them. I think the biggest challenge for me right now is I'm in limbo between the professional and the the corporate and the independent worlds, because throughout my life I haven't still managed to get a recording contract, although I've come close. And with AGT, the season that I was on, season 5, I actually did have a record deal with Sony, but they just chose not to make a record with me, which was that hurt my feelings a lot. But it also so that season also, a company called Octagon, who is this major sports management firm, but they were breaking into entertainment. I don't know if they were successful or not, but they purchased the rights to manage us, because you sign away your life when you audition for AGT. And I met with them, and I just didn't like them. So I ended up suing to get out of my management contract with them.
Wow. And shame on Sony for not signing you and not giving you the opportunity, because in all honesty, you're probably, of all the artists that has ever been on AGT, you have been someone that I think people wanted to hear from. And I think you would have a lot of success with Broadway and with Vegas.
Well, there's a possibility of a Vegas showroom. When Rita Rudner left, there was a space open, and we had a meeting with them. That was early on in things, and they didn't go for it. I think that the idea that we were pitching probably sounded like too much money for them, but which is understandable. So, and with Broadway, I auditioned for Head Over Heels, the Go-Go's musical, I'm strangely old friends with two of the producers of that show, but they went with, I think, someone from RuPaul's Drag Race to play the part that I was auditioning for. And then I'm trying to figure out a way to be able to submit for King George, because I think I could do King George in my sleep.
Absolutely. I could definitely see you on Hamilton stage as King George.
Oh yeah, I'd be happy to sing that song 6 times a week for a year or so.
Yeah, but you're definitely in good company too. Jonathan Groff, Roy O'Malley.
Jonathan Groff stole my career.
Whoa.
No, I'm joking.
Okay, that's good. All right.
So other obstacles that I've faced. So and then the other side of that is the independent side. So learning to learning to just do shit for myself, essentially. Which, and because I'm older, I'm 42, so I feel like
you don't look like you're 42, you look like you're 30.
I know. Skincare. And wear your SPF, kids. And also I'm a private person, so the kind of like the way that like people kind of are, I don't want to give so much intimacy all the time. I don't want to live my life in a performative version of my life, which seems to be the way that everything is going. And like, I don't even understand TikTok. And I don't like the storyfication of everything either. I don't like that, because it just makes it feel like you're in a reality show all the time and doing OTFs on the flies, or confessionals. They have names for all these things when you're on the show. They're like, we need to get an OTF with you. So you're basically now having to do that to yourself, and it's like, when are you living your life? And so I feel like, and then my budgets for all my content is like basically nothing. So, and then I'm a perfectionist. So my output has been very low because, one, there's a steep learning curve to learning how to edit video and audio the way that I want it to be, which is of a certain standard. So there's a lot of unreleased content that I'm really excited to release. It's just been a big hill to climb to get to that point. I decided I didn't want to do makeup tutorials. They kind of bore me. And honestly, I think that most of them are doing things that are meant for like stage makeup, not everyday makeup, And so I think that people are now wearing too much makeup during the day. And I'm so covered in makeup when I wear makeup, but I look at it's obvious I am, because I'm wearing white foundation, but they're basically wearing the same amount of makeup that I wear as Poppycock or a drag queen, like Nikki Tutorials or Jeffree Star or, any of those people. It's just like, stop, it's too much makeup.
I understand that.
So I haven't, but I do want to do YouTube. I do want to have a channel, but for me, the challenge is that, again, I'm a perfectionist and production isn't easy. Even learning how to, make my video calls look better. Like I'm in a ring light. There's like 2 umbrellas over here. I have a video capture card, going through my computer. It's like you have to figure all these things out. So since it's just me, like I had management and I had a big time agent for a year. I was with William Morris, which is,
Wow.
one of the biggest ones.
Which is the biggest.
I never even met my agent. She was in New York for some reason, because they put me with the theatrical department, which made zero sense to me. They needed to put me with the music department. All she did was turn down any gig. I actually got booked for South by Southwest. She turned it down.
What?
She turned down, yeah. I was going to ride the Captain Morgan float in the Key West parade, and she turned that down. She turned down anything that paid less than $10,000.
Wow.
Like, yeah. So, and a lot of it was like I'd find out kind of after the fact, and I had really no say in it. And everybody was treating me as if I was going to be like a commodity. Like they wanted me to be like a Pee Wee Herman type thing, or they wanted me to get some kind of contract with Disney, or, you know, something like that. They had very high hopes in that first year after the show. But during all that time, they kind of put me in a little box and they didn't let me out. And so as a result, you know, they weren't allowing me to perform at like gay clubs during that time and stuff like that. But I was performing at Prides though. I was able to perform at Prides and, you know, stuff like that. But that first year really kind of ran my career into the ground a bit. And, you know, it's like, it's tough. It's tough after you're on these shows to launch a career. It happens for some people. It doesn't happen for people. And it's never a straight line, you know, from point A to point B. There are always highs and lows in every career. So sorry, if you can hear the vacuum cleaner.
Don't worry, we're not perfect. We're not perfect. So
my housekeeper is here.
Don't worry about that, John, because the thing is, it's just amazing that they wouldn't let you do all those incredible opportunities.
Yeah, I don't really. It's weird. Show business is weird. And I have to tell you that a lot of agents and a lot of managers aren't very skilled at actually managing or nurturing talent. They kind of are just looking at the bottom line. And, you know, like my agent at William Morris, they look at you as more of like an item in their stock portfolio. And the less revenue that you make for them, the less interest they'll put into you. And so that entire, you know, literally for a year, I was Linda Evangelista. I won't get out of bed for $10,000. And that was because their take was 10%, and they wanted that money, you know, and under that amount, it wasn't worth it for them to draw up contracts. And that's all they they just draw up contracts. It's like she took no interest in my career, and I only talked to her on the phone. And then my manager kind of got pushed out of his firm and never did anything, was trying to like produce this like bizarre stage spectacular that I didn't understand. And he kept being like, well, write the show. And it was just like, I don't understand where this money is coming from. Like, who's going to fund this? I should be recording an album right now if I'm going to go on a tour. Sorry.
Agreed. I agree.
I should be recording an album right now if I'm going to go on tour. You don't go on tour without an album. It doesn't, like, you know, so it just all, and now I'm independent. You know, I have my lovely booking agent, Stephen Ford, who, you know, books me for my prides and corporate events and weddings and nightclubs. I play a lot less nightclubs now. You know, it's been a long time. And, you know, there's a fresh crop of RuPaul Drag Race girls every year. So, but
here's the thing. Those, in all honesty, those girls don't hold a candle to you, my friend.
Well, I mean, there's a bunch of them that are very, very talented girls, but, you know, and I don't watch that show, but I am friends with a few of them. And what I do is different. Mine is, it's drag-like, but it's based in it's more based in commedia dell'arte, opera, the royal courts, and David Bowie than it is drag. Although drag definitely draws from all of those places too. So I get asked all the time if I'm going to audition for RuPaul's Drag Race, and I'm like, one, I don't lip sync, and two, no.
Yeah, no, that was not any of the questions because I don't even watch RuPaul's Drag Race either. But like the thing is, okay. So I want to change it up really quickly because this year has been a tough year for everybody. Mm-hmm. We've had years with. So how have between the coronavirus, between all the protests, so how have these events challenged you creatively?
Well, I would say that in a few ways it's been really good because I think that technology has gotten to the point of being able to collaborate with other musicians. I don't know how you'd say it, digitally or teleconference or, So that's been actually really good. There's been a few projects. And now, so I'm kind of a hermit anyways, to tell you the truth. I don't go out to nightclubs. I go to restaurants with friends or over to friends' houses or to concerts sometimes. But I'm a bit agoraphobic. I don't like crowds at all. So I don't really go to bars or nightclubs for fun. I'll go for work, sometimes for fun. So that part didn't really change my life much. But living in Los Angeles has been weird because it's such a huge city. And then the shutdown, and then we've had, the curfews and everything like that. So it can feel a bit unnerving. The Black Lives Matter protests, I feel, are long overdue. There's so much injustice, and I understand why people are so angry. It's crazy that it's coming during the same time as a pandemic. Because I know the numbers are going to spike again. That's
what I'm afraid of as well with New York.
I want the damn vaccine, but some scientist apparently that said, there's been I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to spread misinformation. But as an artist, I do think it's a good time to be reflective and quiet and have space and time to work on projects, because that's what I've done. And again, working with other people. Now that the restrictions have been lifted again, I have started having people over to the studio in the last week or so for a voice lesson. And then my friend came over and she recorded the saw. She played the saw.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's quite good at it. It's really neat to watch.
Is that Diamondback Annie?
No, her name is Ursula.
The reason why I mentioned Diamondback Annie is because you guys formed Blazer, and your first song was CCD. Mm-hmm. And so what was that? How did that collaboration come about?
So that is from years and years and years ago. That's from... we recorded that song in, I want to say, 2014. And then we were just doing it for a laugh. We're both on a show called Avenue 43, it's the web soap from Justin Tanner, who is Christian Hoffman's husband. And Christian and I work together quite often, and he's written a few songs for me. So one season he made us into a band, and so we wrote a couple of songs for it, and that was one. And then both of us are interested in learning how to edit film, so we kind of took that as an opportunity to shoot a video and learn how to edit in Final Cut. We watched a bunch of Linda videos. And so it, and then we'd like lose interest and then pick it back up. And then finally it was just like, look, this is done. We're not doing anything more to this thing, because the video is very intricate at this point, and we just finally decided to release it. But I'm very proud of it. I like the song a lot. CCD stands for collective colony disorder, where bees die, which is one of the biggest canaries in the coal mine of our environment right now. And I think it's I've always had a very like goth experimental side to me when I write music, and I think it's an unusual song, but that it's beautiful at the same time. And it was fun collaborating with Annie, and it was fun learning how to edit. So yeah, that's kind of the main thing, was just like we wanted to expand our skill sets, I guess. We watched a bunch of Linda videos on, using Logic and using Final Cut and stuff like that. So I learned a lot through the process. I never really expected it to go anywhere. I think the video still has less than 200 views on YouTube. So, it was more of just a fun learning experiment. And so.
All right. This is the second to last question. So you've been a very strong, supportive advocate for the LGBTQIA rights. And as Pride Month concludes, what do you hope that the LGBTQIA community and our allies do to stop homophobia and improve relationships with the overall community?
Well, we had good news today with the Supreme Court decision. I wish that they would strike down Trump's recent rollback of Obama-era regulation to trans medical rights. Oh my God, that is a sound. That is very disappointing. Obviously, Trump is not an ally. And he did that on the anniversary of Pulse, too, which, and then, he's a devious man. They would call that a dog whistle, which is something that riles up your bass, but that's not a dog whistle. That's just it's a klaxon. So the main thing is we have to get Trump out of office. I'm not, I don't want to spread doom and gloom over anybody, but this election is going to be really weird with the pandemic, with the Black Lives Matter thing, with, the Me Too movement not have even concluded. The Equal Rights Amendment for women hasn't even been passed. Like, women are literally not equal under the law. So I'm very pragmatic about the place that our country's at, and very cognizant that Black and people of color in the trans community are the most vulnerable right now, and the most reviled by the MAGA set. And so I think that seeing after the recent deaths, there's just too many to remember. But the all Black Lives Matter, I loved seeing those. And I'm a hearts and minds person, so I think that to improve relations, it's always best to be out and be representative to those around you, those in your family, those in your community, because I think that evil happens when you start to dehumanize something other than you. It's easy to hate. It's easy to want to strip them of their rights and to kill them when you make them other. But it's hard to make somebody other when you're just like a flesh and blood human who wants the same things as they do, standing in front of them, trying to have a conversation, just about why these rights are in question. So because you don't hear all lives matter come up for anything, like other than a knee-jerk, bad faith, rhetorically false argument. Like, they're not posting that under Black trans deaths. They're just, it's so like, I would also say don't argue with idiots. It's not worth your breath to try and get into a rhetorical argument, especially when you can tell that they're fighting dirty. There's lots of bad faith arguments that people will try to draw you into, and don't waste your energy. It's not worth it. If anything, stick to talking points. That's all we can do. But mostly it's just getting Trump out of office. So if you live in a district that is purple, and you want to canvass, I said canvass. Some people I know even would go over state lines, to canvass. So, and that no candidate is perfect. So get over it and just vote for Biden. So.
All righty. That's the only time we'll do we'll talk politics here. But however, the final question is, how can my audience reach you virtually?
Facebook is my main social media right now, even though I feel like that needs to change because I just can't with Mark Zuckerberg. But I don't like Twitter. I try to use all of them, but I'm not that great. I'm not that great at responding to DMs, but I try to be better. I also have my website, which that's the best place to try and book me. And then, I'm on Insta, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, and I'm not on Snap. I'm not on TikTok.
Understandable.
So.
All righty, guys. For more information about the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar podcast, you can download episodes, head to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Spreaker. And also, if you want to connect with me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, Jacob Elyachar, JACOB ELYACHAR. You can also read up more of my stories on jakestake.com. Once again, it's jakes-take.com. John, this was a long time coming. I'm so grateful that we guys sat down. Thank you so much for your insight. It was.
I should say I'm on YouTube too. I'm on YouTube as well, and I'm trying to grow that. But yes, thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
All righty, and I'm just so grateful to talk with you guys. And have a fantastic day. Goodbye.